The late afternoon sun filtered through the kitchen window of the Sterling house on Beacon Hill, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors that Margaret Sterling had polished herself just that morning. At 62, she still maintained the same meticulous standards that had served her well during 30 years as a cardiac surgeon at Massachusetts General Hospital. Her hands steady enough to have performed thousands of operations trembled slightly as she poured tea into her grandmother's china cups. "Grandma Maggie, there's a man watching Mama again." 8-year-old Lily Morrison's voice cut through the comfortable silence like a scalpel through skin. The child sat at the kitchen island, her dark hair falling in waves around a face that was too serious for her age, her small fingers wrapped around a recording device she'd received for her birthday last month. Lily had developed an obsession with recording everything since her father's death 2 years ago, as if capturing voices could somehow bring back the ones that mattered most. Maggie set down the teapot with deliberate care, her surgeon's training helping her maintain composure, even as her heart rate spiked. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" The Asian man in the gray car. "He was outside Mama's office yesterday when I went to pick her up from work, and I saw him at the grocery store when we went shopping on Saturday. He pretends to look at his phone, but his eyes follow Mama everywhere." The precision of Lily's observations sent a chill through Maggie's chest. Since her husband David's suicide 3 years ago, she'd become hypervigilant about potential threats to her family. David's death had left them all damaged in different ways, but Emma had taken it the hardest, spending 2 years battling postpartum depression while trying to raise Lily alone. "Are you sure it's the same man, Lily?" The little girl nodded gravely, pulling out her phone with the serious air of someone much older. "I took a picture yesterday. Mama says I shouldn't photograph strangers, but something about him made me feel scared." Maggie's breath caught as she looked at the image on Lily's screen. A man in his mid-30s, professionally dressed, sitting in a silver sedan across from the marketing firm where Emma worked. His face was turned toward the building's entrance, and even in the grainy photo, there was something predatory about his posture. "Good instincts, sweetheart." Has Mama noticed him? "No, she's been different lately. Happier, I think. She hums while she makes dinner and smiles at her phone. I think she has a boyfriend, but she hasn't told us yet." The words hit Maggie like a physical blow. Emma, who had barely spoken above a whisper for 2 years after James's death from cancer, was suddenly humming again. And there was a strange man watching her. The timing felt too coincidental, too carefully orchestrated. Maggie's phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Bringing someone to dinner tonight. Hope that's okay. His name is Adam, and I think you'll like him." "Speak of the devil," Maggie murmured, showing Lily the message. Lily's eyes widened as she looked at the text, then back at her photo. "Grandma Maggie, what if the watching man and Mama's boyfriend are the same person?" The question hung in the air between them, like smoke from an extinguished candle. Maggie pulled Lily close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, trying to calm the storm of protective instincts raging in her chest. After David's death, after watching Emma slowly emerge from the depths of grief, the thought of someone deliberately targeting her daughter filled Maggie with a fury she hadn't felt since the day she'd found David's body in his study. "We're going to find out tonight," Maggie said softly. "And Lily, keep that recording device close. Sometimes grown-ups say things they don't mean children to hear." 2 hours later, Maggie stood at her kitchen window watching a silver sedan pull into her driveway. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she recognized the car from Lily's photograph. A man emerged from the driver's seat, tall and lean, with carefully styled black hair and an expensive suit that spoke of success and confidence. He carried a bouquet of white roses and moved with the fluid grace of someone accustomed to being watched and admired. Emma appeared from the passenger seat, and Maggie's breath caught at the transformation in her daughter. For the first time in 3 years, Emma looked truly alive. Her auburn hair gleamed in the evening light, and she wore a blue dress that Maggie hadn't seen since before James's death. But more than her appearance, it was Emma's body language that struck Maggie most forcefully. She leaned into the man's touch when he placed his hand on her lower back, laughed at something he whispered in her ear, and looked up at him with an expression of genuine happiness that Maggie had feared was lost forever. The front door opened, and Emma's voice filled the foyer with a warmth that had been absent for too long. "Mom, I'd like you to meet Adam Chen. Adam, this is my mother, Dr. Margaret Sterling." Adam stepped forward with the confident smile of a man accustomed to making good first impressions. "Dr. Sterling, Emma has told me so much about you." These are for you." He extended the bouquet with a slight bow that struck Maggie as either charmingly old-fashioned or calculatedly manipulative. "Thank you, Mr. Chen. They're beautiful." Maggie accepted the flowers while studying his face intently. Up close, he was undeniably handsome, with sharp cheekbones and intelligent dark eyes that seemed to miss nothing. When he smiled, dimples appeared in his cheeks, giving him an almost boyish charm that she could understand would appeal to Emma. "Please call me Adam. Emma tells me you were recently retired from cardiac surgery at Mass General. That must have been incredibly demanding work." There was something in his tone that made Maggie pause, not quite condescension, but a subtle suggestion that he understood her world better than most people would. "30 years, she confirmed. "I specialized in pediatric cardiac surgery, and you, Adam." Emma mentioned you're in real estate investment. "Among other things, I focus primarily on waterfront properties along the New England coast. There's something about ocean views that never goes out of style, don't you think?" His eyes moved past Maggie as he spoke, scanning the interior of the house with what appeared to be professional assessment rather than casual interest. The Sterling house was indeed impressive, a four-story Victorian brownstone that had been in David's family for 3 generations. But it was the way Adam's gaze lingered on certain details that set off alarm bells in Maggie's mind. "Where's Lily?" Emma asked, looking around the foyer. "I was hoping she could meet Adam before dinner." "She's upstairs finishing her homework. Lily can be shy with new people." Maggie chose her words carefully, watching Adam's reaction. "Of course. Children need time to adjust to change. I have a niece about her age, and she's the same way." The lie came so smoothly that Maggie almost missed it. Almost. But 30 years of surgery had taught her to notice when something didn't align properly, and everything about Adam Chen felt slightly off-center. The expensive watch on his wrist didn't match the modest success story Emma had shared. His knowledge of their family situation seemed too comprehensive for someone who had supposedly met Emma by chance at a coffee shop 3 weeks ago. During dinner, Adam was the perfect guest. He complimented Maggie's cooking, asked thoughtful questions about Emma's work at the marketing firm, and shared charming stories about his own childhood growing up in San Francisco. But Maggie noticed how often his attention drifted to the family photographs lining the dining room walls, particularly the ones showing the family's summer house on Cape Cod. "That's a beautiful property," Adam commented, gesturing toward a photo of Emma and Lily building sandcastles on the beach. "Waterfront real estate on the Cape has appreciated tremendously over the past few years. A house like that must be worth quite a bit now." "It's been in David's family for decades," Maggie replied carefully. "We're not interested in selling." "Of course not. Family properties like that are irreplaceable. Though I imagine the maintenance costs must be significant, especially for a house that size right on the water." There it was again, that subtle probings disguised as casual conversation. Maggie felt Emma's eyes on her and forced herself to smile. "We manage." Lily appeared in the doorway as they were clearing the table, having finally worked up the courage to come downstairs. She hung back near the entrance to the dining room, her small frame partially hidden behind the doorframe, clutching her recording device like a security blanket. "There she is," Emma said warmly. "Lily, come say hello to Adam." The child took 2 hesitant steps forward, her dark eyes fixed on Adam's face with an intensity that made him visibly uncomfortable. For a moment, his practiced smile faltered, and Maggie caught a glimpse of something harder underneath. "Hello, Lily. Your mom has told me wonderful things about you. I hear you're quite the artist." Lily didn't respond, continuing to stare at Adam with that unsettling directness that only children possess. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Emma intervened. "Lily, don't be rude. Adam brought you something." Adam produced a small wrapped package from his jacket pocket. "I wasn't sure what you'd like, but Emma mentioned you enjoy crafts." It was a set of expensive colored pencils, the kind that cost more than most families spend on school supplies in a year. Lily accepted the gift with a quiet, "Thank you," but made no move to open it. "What do you say we save these for later?" Maggie suggested, sensing Lily's discomfort. "It's almost bedtime anyway." As Lily turned to leave, she paused at the doorway and he's looking back at Adam. "My daddy used to say that people who watch from far away are usually planning something they don't want you to know about." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Emma's face flushed with embarrassment. "Lily, that's not appropriate." But Adam's reaction was what caught Maggie's attention. For just an instant, his composure cracked completely, and she saw something that looked like fear flash across his features before the charming mask slipped back into place. "Smart kid," he said with a laugh that sounded forced. "She's going to be a handful when she's a teenager." After Adam and Emma left for what Emma called a nightcap at his place, Maggie found Lily in her bedroom, still fully dressed and staring out the window at the street below. "What are you watching for, sweetheart?" "I wanted to see if he comes back tonight. To watch the house." The matter-of-fact way Lily said it made Maggie's blood run cold. "Has that happened before with other people?" Lily shook her head. "Just him. But Grandma Maggie, there's something else. When he was talking at dinner, I turned on my recorder." She held up the small device. "I recorded everything he said." "That's very smart thinking, Lily. What did you notice?" "His voice changes when he talks about different things. When he talks to Mama, it's soft and nice. When he talks about the house or money, it gets harder. And when I asked him about watching people, he sounded scared." Maggie sat on the edge of Lily's bed, marveling at her granddaughter's perceptive abilities. "What else did you notice?" "He knows things about us that Mama didn't tell him. Like when he mentioned that Daddy was an architect, but Mama said she never talked about Daddy's job. And he knew about the time I got lost at the grocery store last month, but that happened before Mama met him." The implications of Lily's observations sent ice through Maggie's veins. Adam Chen hadn't just been watching Emma recently. He'd been studying their family for weeks, possibly months. "Hey, Lily, I need you to promise me something. If you ever feel unsafe around Adam, you come find me immediately. And keep recording things when he's here." Sometimes adults hide important information in their conversations. Lily nodded gravely. "Are we in danger?" Grandma Maggie pulled her granddaughter close, inhaling the sweet scent of childhood innocence that she would protect at any cost. "I don't know yet, sweetheart, but we're going to be very careful until we figure out what Adam really wants." The next morning, Maggie stood in her study surrounded by boxes she hadn't opened since David's death. His suicide had left behind not just grief and financial ruin, but also a collection of legal documents, financial records, and correspondence that she'd been too devastated to examine thoroughly at the time. Now, with Adam Chen's probing questions about their family history echoing in her mind, she felt compelled to dig deeper into the circumstances that had led to David's death. David Sterling had been a successful architect until his partnership with Marcus Chen had gone catastrophically wrong. The two men had planned to develop a luxury resort on Martha's Vineyard, but Marcus had systematically embezzled funds from their joint accounts before disappearing entirely. The betrayal had left David facing bankruptcy lawsuits from investors and the humiliating collapse of his professional reputation. 3 months after Marcus vanished, David had taken his own life, rather than face the consequences of his partner's crimes. At the time, Maggie had been too consumed by grief and the practical necessities of survival to question the official narrative. She'd accepted that Marcus Chen was a criminal who had destroyed her husband and disappeared into thin air. But now, staring at a photograph of Marcus from one of David's old business magazines, she felt her heart stop. The bone structure was identical. The shape of the eyes, the set of the jaw, the way he held his shoulders. Adam Chen looked like Marcus Chen, but 30 years younger. With trembling fingers, Maggie pulled out her phone and called the one person she trusted to help her navigate this revelation, Detective Sarah Walsh, a former patient whose daughter's life Maggie had saved during a complex cardiac surgery 5 years earlier. "Dr. Sterling, is everything all right?" "Sarah, I need your help. It's about my family, and I think we might be in serious danger." An hour later, Sarah Walsh sat in Maggie's study examining the photographs and documents spread across the desk. A woman in her 40s with graying blonde hair and intelligent blue eyes, Sarah had the kind of steady presence that came from 20 years of police work. She studied the images of Marcus and Adam Chen with the methodical attention of an experienced investigator. "The resemblance is striking," Sarah admitted, "but resemblance alone isn't evidence of anything illegal. What makes you think Adam poses a threat to your family?" Maggie shared Lily's observations about being watched, Adam's excessive interest in their financial situation, and his surprisingly detailed knowledge of their family history. As she spoke, Sarah's expression grew increasingly concerned. "I can run a background check on Adam Chen, see what comes up. But Dr. Sterling, if this man is related to Marcus Chen, and if he's deliberately targeted Emma, we need to consider the possibility that this is about more than just revenge or closure." "What do you mean?" Sarah pulled out a file folder from her briefcase. 3 years ago, when your husband died, I was involved peripherally in the investigation into Marcus Chen's disappearance. The case was never officially closed because we never found him or the money he stole. But there were rumors in the Financial Crimes Unit that Marcus had been seen in Vancouver living under an assumed name. The room seemed to tilt around Maggie as the implications sank in. You think Marcus is still alive? I think it's possible, and if he is, and if Adam is his son, then this whole relationship with Emma might be part of a larger plan to recover what they see as their assets. Dr. Sterling, how much money did your husband lose in the partnership? $2.7 million. Everything we had was tied up in that development project. Sarah made notes in her file. And your current assets, the house, the Cape Cod property. Emma's inheritance. Combined probably around $4 million. But Sarah David was the victim in all this. Marcus stole from him, not the other way around. I know that, and you know that. But if Marcus Chen has spent the last 3 years telling his son that David Sterling was somehow responsible for his downfall, Adam might genuinely believe he's entitled to your family's assets. The possibility that Adam truly believed he was righting a wrong rather than perpetrating a new crime added a layer of complexity that made Maggie's head spin. A calculating gold digger was one thing, but a true believer convinced of his own righteousness was potentially far more dangerous. What do we do? Maggie asked. We investigate carefully and quietly. I'll run background checks on both Adam and Marcus Chen, see if we can establish their relationship and Adam's real intentions. In the meantime, you need to be extremely careful not to let on that you suspect anything. If Adam realizes he's been discovered, he might escalate his timeline. That evening, Emma came home glowing with happiness and carrying takeout from an expensive restaurant downtown. Adam took me to lunch at Mistral today, she announced, setting the bags on the kitchen counter. Can you believe it? I haven't been anywhere that nice since... She trailed off, her expression clouding briefly. Since James, Maggie finished gently. Emma nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. I know it's only been 3 weeks, but Mom, I feel like I'm finally alive again. Adam makes me remember who I used to be before everything fell apart. Watching her daughter's face illuminate as she talked about Adam, Maggie felt her heart break a little. Emma had been through so much pain, had fought so hard to climb out of the darkness of depression and grief. The idea that someone might be deliberately exploiting her vulnerability, using her capacity for love as a weapon against her, filled Maggie with a rage so pure and cold, it frightened her. Tell me about him, Maggie said carefully. How did you two meet? It was the strangest thing. I was at that little coffee shop near my office, the one with the terrible parking situation. I was juggling my laptop and my coffee and trying to get out the door, and I literally ran into him. Spilled coffee all over his shirt. Emma laughed at the memory. He was so gracious about it, insisted on buying me a replacement coffee, and we just started talking. The story sounded rehearsed, too perfectly meet-cute to be entirely genuine. But Emma's joy was real, and that made everything infinitely more complicated. What does he do exactly? You mentioned real estate investment, but that covers a lot of territory. He specializes in waterfront properties primarily along the New England coast. He's got this amazing eye for undervalued properties with development potential. Actually, he mentioned that our Cape Cod house would be perfect for his kind of work if we were ever interested in selling. Maggie forced herself to remain calm. Selling, we've never discussed selling the Cape House. Oh, I know, and I told him we'd never sell. But he said the property values out there have tripled in the last 5 years, and with the maintenance costs... Emma shrugged. I don't know, maybe it's worth at least getting an appraisal just to know what we're sitting on. The casual way Emma introduced the idea told Maggie that this wasn't the first time Adam had brought up the subject. He was planting seeds slowly and patiently, working to change Emma's perspective on their family assets. Emma, that house has been in our family for 40 years. Your father and I renovated it ourselves when you were a baby. Some things are worth more than money. I know, Mom. I'm not saying we should sell it. I'm just saying maybe we should know what it's worth. Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, drawn by the sound of their conversation. She'd been unusually quiet since Adam's visit the night before, and Maggie noticed she was clutching her recording device again. Are we going to sell the beach house? Lily asked, her voice small and worried. Emma knelt down to hug her daughter. No, sweetheart, we're just talking. The beach house isn't going anywhere. But over Lily's head, Emma's eyes met Maggie's, and there was something there that hadn't been there before. A question perhaps, or the beginning of doubt. That night after Emma had gone to bed, Maggie found Lily in the living room, curled up in David's old leather chair, with her recording device and a pair of headphones. "What are you listening to, sweetheart?" Lily looked up with the serious expression that had become her default since her father's death. "I recorded Mama talking on the phone with Adam earlier. She didn't know I was in the hallway." "And what did you hear?" "Adam was asking her about money stuff, about how much the houses are worth, and about something called life insurance. Mama told him about the money Daddy left us when he died." Maggie's blood ran cold. Life insurance payouts were often significant sums, and if Adam was systematically cataloging their family's assets, he was planning something far more comprehensive than a simple romance scam. "Did you hear anything else?" Lily nodded, her small face grave. "Adam said something about his family deserving better and that sometimes you have to take back what's rightfully yours. And Mama asked him what he meant, but he said it was nothing, just work stuff." The pieces were clicking into place with terrifying clarity. Adam wasn't just a gold digger or even a simple con man. He was someone who genuinely believed that the Sterling family owed him something, that their assets rightfully belonged to him. And he was slowly, methodically working to claim what he saw as his inheritance. "Lily, I need you to keep recording everything Adam says when he's here. Can you do that for me?" "Is he going to hurt us, Grandma Maggie?" Maggie pulled her granddaughter close, feeling the weight of 3 generations of Sterling women resting on her shoulders. "Not if I can help it. Sweetheart, not if I can help it." "I am." The call from Detective Walsh came at 7 a.m. the next morning, jarring Maggie from a restless sleep, filled with dreams of David's last days and Adam's predatory smile. "Dr. Sterling, I need you to sit down. What I found about Adam Chen is worse than we suspected." Maggie gripped the phone tighter, already knowing she wasn't going to like what she heard. "Adam Chen doesn't exist. At least not the version your daughter has been dating. The real Adam Chen is a 22-year-old college student in California who has no connection to real estate or Boston. Someone has been using his identity." The floor seemed to drop away beneath Maggie's feet. "Then who is the man dating my daughter? Based on the photographs you provided and some facial recognition software, I believe his real name is Alex Morrison. And Dr. Sterling, Alex Morrison, is Marcus Chen's son." The confirmation of her worst fears should have felt devastating, but instead Maggie felt a strange sense of relief. After 3 days of uncertainty and growing dread, at least now she knew what they were dealing with. "There's more," Sarah continued. "Marcus Chen didn't just disappear after stealing from your husband. He's been living in Vancouver under the name Michael Carson, and he's been quite successful in real estate development. Alex has been working for his father's company for the past 5 years, learning the business and apparently learning how to identify and exploit vulnerable targets. Have there been others? That's what we're investigating now. But Dr. Sterling, I think Alex genuinely believes his father's version of events. In his mind, David Sterling was complicit in some kind of fraud that destroyed his father's life and reputation. He's not just after money. He's after what he sees as justice. The revelation that Alex might be acting out of genuine conviction rather than pure greed somehow made the situation more terrifying. A man motivated by righteous anger was capable of justifying almost anything. "What do I do about Emma? She's falling in love with him." "Nothing yet. We need more evidence before we can move against him, and if he realizes we're onto him, he might disappear like his father did. Can you maintain the pretense for a few more days while we build our case?" Maggie thought about Emma's radiant happiness, about the light that had returned to her daughter's eyes after so many months of darkness. The idea of shattering that joy, even to protect Emma from a much greater devastation, felt like another kind of betrayal. "I'll try, but Sarah, Emma is already talking about getting appraisals on our properties. He's moving faster than we anticipated." "Then we need to move faster too. I'm going to contact the Vancouver police and see if we can get more information about Marcus Chen's activities. In the meantime, be very careful. And Dr. Sterling, that granddaughter of yours might be the key to bringing this whole thing down. Her recordings could be crucial evidence if this goes to court." After hanging up, Maggie sat in her kitchen, staring at the family photographs on the refrigerator. Pictures of Emma as a child of David, teaching Lily to ride a bicycle of 3 generations of Sterling women, building sandcastles on Cape Cod. A family that had already survived one devastating betrayal was now facing another, and this time the weapon being used against them was Emma's own capacity for love and trust. The sound of footsteps on the stairs indicated that Emma was awake and getting ready for work. In a few hours, she would see Alex again, would smile at him, and share her hopes and dreams, never knowing that he was systematically cataloging every detail for his own purposes. The thought made Maggie feel physically ill. "Good morning, Mom." Emma appeared in his kitchen already dressed and looking more energetic than she had in years. "Adam's picking me up for lunch today. He wants to drive by some properties he's considering for investment. I thought it might be fun to see what he does for work." The casual way Emma mentioned spending the day with Alex, learning more about his supposed business interests, sent alarm bells clanging in Maggie's mind. This wasn't just a romantic lunch. This was reconnaissance, and Emma was unknowingly participating in her own exploitation. "That sounds nice, sweetheart. Will you be home for dinner?" Actually, Adam asked if Lily and I might want to spend the weekend at his place. He has a beautiful apartment overlooking the harbor, and he thought Lily might enjoy seeing the boats. If that's okay with you, every instinct Maggie possessed screamed against allowing her daughter and granddaughter to spend a weekend alone with Alex Morrison. But if she objected too strenuously, she might tip him off to her suspicions. "Let me think about it," she said carefully. "Lily's been having some adjustment issues lately. New people can be overwhelming for her." Emma's face fell slightly. "I know she was shy the other night, but Adam really wants to get to know her better. He says he understands how important family is, and he wants to be part of ours." The manipulation was so smooth, so perfectly calculated to appeal to Emma's desire for stability and family connection, that Maggie had to admire Alex's skill even as she despised his intentions. "We'll see how she feels about it," Maggie said. "Sometimes these things take time." After Emma left for work, Maggie went upstairs to find Lily in her bedroom, sitting cross-legged on her bed with her recording device and a notebook. The little girl looked up as Maggie entered, her dark eyes serious and alert. "I've been listening to all the recordings I made when Adam was here," Lily announced, "and I wrote down all the strange things he said." Maggie sat on the edge of the bed, impressed once again by her granddaughter's perceptive abilities. "What did you discover?" Lily consulted her notebook with the gravity of a seasoned detective. "He asked 17 questions about money or the houses. He mentioned Daddy 3 times, even though Mama said she never told him about Daddy. And he used 2 different names when he was talking on the phone. Different names. When his phone rang during dinner, the person calling said, 'Hello, Alex,' really loud, but he told them they had the wrong number. But then later when he called someone back, I heard him say, 'It's Alex. Everything's going according to plan.'" The precision of Lily's observations sent chills through Maggie's chest. Even if she hadn't known about Alex's true identity, her 8-year-old granddaughter had picked up on inconsistencies that revealed his deception. "Lily, you are remarkably smart, and I'm very proud of how carefully you have been paying attention. I need you to know that the things you've noticed are important, and they're going to help us protect Mama." "Is Adam trying to hurt us?" Maggie chose her words carefully. "I think Adam is not who he pretends to be, and I think he wants something from our family that he's not being honest about." Lily nodded gravely. "That's what I thought too. Grandma Maggie Mama wants to take me to Adam's apartment this weekend. I don't want to go, but I don't want it to make her sad either." The conflict in Lily's voice broke Maggie's heart. At 8 years old, she was already trying to balance her own safety instincts against her desire to protect her mother's happiness. "What if we make a plan?" Maggie suggested. "If you do end up going to Adam's apartment, you keep your recording device with you at all times. And if anything makes you feel scared or uncomfortable, you call me immediately." "What if Adam tries to take my recorder away?" The question demonstrated a level of strategic thinking that both impressed and saddened Maggie. No child should have to develop such sophisticated survival instincts. "Then we'll get you a backup." Maggie pulled out her own phone and showed Lily how to use the voice recording app. "This way, even if he takes your device, you can still record things." As they worked together to devise their surveillance plan, Maggie felt a strange mixture of pride and heartbreak. Lily's intelligence and intuition were remarkable, but the fact that she needed to use those gifts to protect her family from a predator was a tragedy in itself. The day passed with agonizing slowness as Maggie waited for Emma to return from her lunch with Alex. Every hour that passed brought them closer to the weekend, when Emma and Lily would be alone with a man who was systematically working to destroy their lives. The thought of her family in Alex's apartment, surrounded by his lies and manipulation, filled Maggie with a helpless rage that threatened to overwhelm her carefully maintained composure. When Emma finally arrived home that evening, she was practically glowing with excitement. "Mom, you should see the properties Adam is working on. He has such vision, such an eye for potential. There's this old warehouse district that he thinks could be transformed into luxury condominiums, and the way he talks about it, you can just see how beautiful it could be." Listening to Emma gush about Alex's supposed business acumen, Maggie realized that his deception went far deeper than she'd initially understood. He wasn't just lying about his identity and his interest in their family. He was creating an entire fictional world of success and sophistication, drawing Emma into a fantasy that would make the eventual betrayal even more devastating. "He sounds very passionate about his work," Maggie said carefully. "He is. And Mom, he told me something today that really touched me. He said that after his father died, he made a promise to himself that he would never let anyone take advantage of people he cared about. He said that's why he's so careful about investments and financial security. He wants to protect the people he loves." The irony was so bitter it left a metallic taste in Maggie's mouth. Alex was using the language of protection and care to justify the very betrayal he was perpetrating. He'd turned his supposed desire to protect Emma into another tool of manipulation. "That's very thoughtful of him," Maggie managed. "I think he's the one, Mom. I know it's early, but I haven't felt this way since James. Adam makes me feel safe and cherished, and like I have a future worth looking forward to." As Emma spoke, Maggie saw not just the happiness in her daughter's eyes, but also the vulnerability underneath it. Emma was placing all her hope for healing and renewal in the hands of a man who was systematically working to destroy everything she held dear. The cruel precision of Alex's targeting made Maggie feel physically sick. That night, as the house settled into quiet and Emma dreamed of her bright future with Alex Morrison, Maggie lay awake planning her own strategy. Detective Walsh would continue building the legal case against Alex and his father, but Maggie knew that legal justice might not be enough to protect her family. She needed to find a way to expose Alex's true nature in a manner that Emma couldn't deny or rationalize away. The answer, she realized, lay in Alex's own arrogance and his apparent belief that he was entitled to their family's assets. If she could create a situation where he revealed his true intentions, where his mask slipped completely, then Emma would see him for what he really was. It would require perfect timing and nerves of steel, but Maggie had spent 30 years making life-and-death decisions under pressure. She could do this. She had to do this. Because somewhere in Vancouver, Marcus Chen was waiting for news that his son had successfully infiltrated the Sterling family and gained access to the assets he believed were rightfully his. And Maggie would rather die than let that happen. The gift of truth, she decided, was exactly what Alex Morrison deserved, and she was going to make sure he received it in full measure. The weekend arrived with unseasonable warmth for late October in Boston, and Emma packed an overnight bag with the excitement of a teenager going on her first date. Maggie watched from the kitchen window as Alex's silver sedan pulled into the driveway, her heart hammering against her ribs as she observed him through new eyes. Now that she knew his true identity, everything about him seemed sinister: the way he surveyed their property, the calculated charm of his smile, the predatory patience in his movements. "He's here," Emma called from upstairs, her voice bright with anticipation. Lily appeared at Maggie's elbow, clutching both her recording device and her backup phone. The little girl had been unusually quiet all morning, torn between her instinctive distrust of Alex and her desire not to disappoint her mother. "Remember what we talked about," Maggie whispered, squeezing Lily's shoulder gently. "Trust your instincts and call me if anything feels wrong." The front door opened and Alex's voice filled the foyer with manufactured warmth. "Good morning, Dr. Sterling. Beautiful day for a little adventure, don't you think?" He wore casual clothes today, expensive jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. But it was his smile that caught Maggie's attention, the way it never quite reached his eyes when he looked at Lily. "Good morning, Alex. I trust you'll take good care of my girls." Of course, I was thinking we'd start with brunch at my place, then maybe take a walk along the harbor. Lily, I have something special to show you. My apartment has a telescope, and you can see all the way to the islands. Lily nodded politely but pressed closer to Maggie's side. Alex's eyes flickered with something that might have been annoyance before the charming mask slipped back into place. Emma appeared with their overnight bags, practically radiating happiness. "Ready for our mini adventure, sweetheart?" she asked Lily, who managed a small smile in response. As they prepared to leave, Alex's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Excuse me for just one moment," he said, stepping onto the front porch to take the call. Through the open door, Maggie could hear fragments of his conversation. "Told you to wait until Monday. No, she's not ready yet. Give me more time." When he returned, his smile was brighter than before, but Maggie noticed a tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there earlier. "Everything all right?" Emma asked. "Just work. You know how it is. Real estate deals wait for no one." He kissed Emma's cheek and picked up their bags. "Shall we?" As they walked toward his car, Lily turned back to look at Maggie. In that brief glance, Maggie saw both fear and determination in her granddaughter's eyes. Whatever happened this weekend, Lily would be watching and listening. The silver sedan pulled away, leaving Maggie alone in the house with her racing thoughts and growing dread. She picked up her phone and called Detective Walsh. "They just left for his apartment," she said without preamble. "Sarah, I have a very bad feeling about this weekend." "I've been trying to reach you," Sarah replied, her voice tense. "I got word from Vancouver this morning. Marcus Chen, or Michael Carson as he's been calling himself, boarded a flight to Boston yesterday. He's here, Dr. Sterling, in the city." The words hit Maggie like a physical blow. "Here? Why would he come here now?" "I think they're accelerating their timeline. Maybe they suspect we're onto them, or maybe they've decided Emma is ready for the next phase of whatever they're planning. Either way, we need to move fast." Maggie sank into a kitchen chair, her mind racing through possibilities, all of them terrifying. "What can we do? Emma and Lily are with Alex right now, and I don't even know where his apartment actually is. I'm working on getting his real address. In the meantime, I need you to stay calm and stay by your phone. If Lily calls you, we need to be ready to respond immediately." After hanging up, Maggie felt more helpless than she had since the day she'd found David's body. Her daughter and granddaughter were alone with a dangerous man whose father, the architect of their family's previous destruction, was somewhere in Boston. Every protective instinct she possessed screamed at her to get in her car and search for them, but she had no idea where to begin looking. Meanwhile, across the city in a luxury apartment building overlooking Boston Harbor, Emma stood on Alex's terrace, mesmerized by the view of sailboats dotting the water like white butterflies. The apartment was everything she'd expected from a successful real estate investor: modern, elegant, and expensive. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the harbor, and the furniture looked like it belonged in an architectural magazine. "It's breathtaking," she said, accepting the mimosa Alex offered her. "I'm glad you like it. I've been hoping you and Lily would feel comfortable here." He gestured toward the living room where Lily sat stiffly on a white leather sofa, her small hands clutching her recording device. "She seems a little overwhelmed." Emma followed his gaze to her daughter, noting the way Lily's dark eyes tracked Alex's every movement. "She's been through a lot of changes lately. It takes her time to warm up to new places." "Of course, I understand completely." Alex's voice was gentle, sympathetic, but Emma caught something else underneath, a flicker of impatience that made her suddenly uneasy. The feeling passed as Alex began pointing out landmarks visible from the terrace, his knowledge of the city's history impressive, and his storytelling engaging. But Emma found herself watching Lily more than listening to Alex's commentary. Her daughter sat unnaturally still, like a small animal sensing danger. "Why don't we show Lily the telescope?" Alex suggested, leading them back inside to where a professional-grade telescope stood positioned near the windows. Lily approached cautiously, clearly fascinated by the instrument despite her wariness of its owner. As Alex adjusted the telescope for her height and showed her how to focus on the distant islands, Emma felt a moment of hope. Maybe her mother had been wrong to worry. Maybe Lily just needed time to see what Emma saw in this kind, successful man who wanted to be part of their family. But then Alex's phone rang again, and everything changed. He glanced at the caller ID, and his face went completely white. "I need to take this," he said abruptly, walking quickly toward his bedroom. Through the thin walls, Emma could hear his voice low and urgent. "I told you not to call me here." "She's not ready. You're moving too fast." Lily looked up from the telescope, her eyes wide. She pointed to her recording device and nodded toward the bedroom door. Emma found herself nodding back, suddenly grateful for her daughter's suspicious nature. Alex's voice rose slightly, and they caught fragments. "The Sterling woman is getting suspicious. The old lady keeps asking questions. I need more time to secure the assets." The words hit Emma like ice water. Sterling woman. The casual way he said it, as if she weren't a person, but an obstacle to be managed. And what assets was he talking about? When Alex returned a few minutes later, his charming smile was back in place, but Emma noticed he avoided making eye contact. "Sorry about that. Business calls at the worst times, don't they?" "What kind of business call requires that much secrecy?" Emma asked, trying to keep her tone light and curious rather than accusatory. "Oh, you know how it is with investors. They get nervous if they think deals aren't progressing fast enough. Sometimes you have to reassure them that everything is under control." He moved to stand behind her at the telescope. "Here, let me show you how to adjust the focus for the lighthouse." His hands covered hers on the telescope controls, and for the first time since she'd met him, Alex's touch made Emma's skin crawl. There was something possessive about it, something that felt more like control than affection. "It's like the game, Mom," she said carefully. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, anything." "How much do you know about my family's financial situation?" The question hung in the air between them like smoke. For just a moment, Alex's mask slipped, and Emma saw something calculating in his eyes before the charm reasserted itself. "Only what you've told me, darling." "Why do you ask?" "It's just that you seem very interested in our properties, and you mentioned investment opportunities several times. I'm wondering if you see me as a potential client or as—" She trailed off, not sure how to finish the sentence without sounding paranoid. Alex stepped closer, his hands moving to her shoulders. "Emma, I hope you don't think I have any ulterior motives. I care about you, about your future, about Lily's security. If I've been asking about your assets, it's only because I want to make sure you're making the most of what you have." The explanation sounded reasonable, but something about his delivery felt rehearsed. Emma glanced at Lily, who was watching them with that unnervingly adult expression she'd developed since her father's death. "Maybe we should head back home," Emma said suddenly. "Lily seems tired, and I promised my mother we wouldn't stay out too late." For just an instant, Alex's grip on her shoulders tightened. "I was hoping you'd stay for dinner. I made reservations at that new restaurant in the North End." "Another time, perhaps. I think Lily needs to be in familiar surroundings tonight." "Of course," Alex agreed, but his smile looked forced. "Let me just gather a few things, and I'll drive you home." While Alex was in his bedroom, Emma knelt down next to Lily. "Did you record any of that phone conversation?" she whispered. Lily nodded, her eyes bright with an intelligence that sometimes startled Emma. "Mama, I think we should call Grandma Maggie." Before Emma could respond, Alex returned with his jacket and keys, ready to go. The drive back to Beacon Hill passed in strained silence. Alex seemed lost in thought, occasionally glancing in the rearview mirror, as if checking to see if they were being followed. Emma found herself studying his profile, looking for signs of the man she'd fallen in love with, and seeing instead a stranger whose motivations she no longer understood. When they pulled into the driveway, Maggie was waiting on the front porch, her face a mask of barely controlled anxiety. She hurried down the steps as they got out of the car. "You're back early." She observed her eyes moving between Emma's tense expression and Lily's pale face. "Lily was tired," Emma said, which was partially true. Alex stepped forward with his practiced smile. "Dr. Sterling, I hope you don't mind that I brought them back sooner than planned. I could see Lily wasn't quite comfortable yet, and I don't want to rush things." "How thoughtful," Maggie replied, but her tone was cool. "Lily, why don't you go inside and get ready for your bath?" As Lily headed toward the house, she caught Maggie's eye and tapped her recording device significantly. Maggie's expression remained neutral, but Emma saw her nod almost imperceptibly. "Emma, could I speak with you for a moment?" Alex asked. "Privately." They walked a few steps away from Maggie, toward the garden at the side of the house. In the gathering dusk, Alex's face was difficult to read, but his voice carried an urgency that Emma hadn't heard before. "I know today didn't go as smoothly as I'd hoped," he began. Lily's still adjusting to the idea of me being in your lives, and I understand that. But Emma, I need you to know how serious I am about our future together. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emma's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a diamond ring that probably cost more than she made in a year. I know it's fast, but when you know, you know. Marry me, Emma. Let me take care of you and Lily. Let me give you the security and love you deserve. The proposal should have been a moment of pure joy, but instead Emma felt a cold certainty settling in her chest. This wasn't about love. This was about something else entirely, something that had to do with business calls and asset management, and the way Alex had referred to her as the Sterling woman. Alex, this is so sudden. I know it seems fast, but I've been thinking about this for weeks. Emma, I want to build a life with you. I want to help you make the most of your assets, create a secure future for Lily. We could travel, invest in properties together, maybe even develop that Cape Cod house into something really spectacular. There it was again, the focus on properties and investments and financial security. Emma looked at the ring, beautiful and expensive, and somehow wrong, and felt something inside her chest crack open. I need time to think, she said quietly. Alex's expression flickered with what might have been anger before the smile returned. Of course, this is a big decision. But Emma, don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't wait forever. The words sounded like a threat wrapped in romantic language. As Emma watched Alex get back into his car and drive away, she realized that her mother's suspicions might not have been overprotective paranoia after all. Inside the house, Maggie was waiting with Detective Walsh, who had arrived while Emma was outside with Alex. The two women sat at the kitchen table with Lily between them, the little girl's recording device connected to a small speaker. Emma, Maggie said as her daughter entered, I think you need to hear this. They played back the recording from Alex's apartment, and Emma listened with growing horror to the fragments of conversation Lily had captured. The Sterling woman is getting suspicious. The old lady keeps asking questions. I need more time to secure the assets. That's not all, Detective Walsh said gently. Emma, I need to tell you something about Adam Chen. That's not his real name. As Sarah explained about Alex Morrison and Marcus Chen, about the connection to David's suicide and the systematic targeting of their family, Emma felt her world tilt and reshape around her. The man she'd been falling in love with, the man who had just proposed to her, was the son of the partner who had destroyed her father and driven him to take his own life. He planned all of it, she whispered, sinking into a chair. The coffee shop meeting, the way he made me feel special, the proposal tonight. None of it was real. Maggie reached across the table to take her daughter's hand. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. But why? Emma's voice broke. What does he want from us? Dad lost everything because of his father. What could we possibly have that they want? Detective Walsh pulled out a file folder. That's what we've been investigating. Emma, your father didn't lose everything in Marcus Chen's embezzlement. There were assets that were protected from creditors, assets that legally belong to you now. What assets? The Cape Cod house, for one. It was placed in a family trust before your father's partnership with Marcus began. There are also life insurance policies, your mother's medical practice pension, and some investments that your father made separately from the development deal. Combined, you're looking at close to $4 million in assets. Emma stared at the papers Detective Walsh spread across the table. $4 million. But we've been struggling financially for years. Because your father never told you about these protected assets, Maggie said softly. He was so devastated by the bankruptcy, so ashamed of what Marcus had done, that he couldn't bear to talk about money at all. After he died, I was too grief-stricken to examine the financial documents thoroughly. So Alex and his father think these assets rightfully belong to them. More than that, Detective Walsh replied. We have reason to believe that Marcus Chen has been planning this for years. He's been living comfortably in Canada under an assumed name, but he's never stopped believing that your father somehow cheated him. In his twisted logic, anything your family has managed to salvage belongs to them. Lily looked up from where she'd been quietly listening. Are they going to try to take our house? The simple question cut through all the legal and financial complexities to the heart of the matter. These men wanted to destroy their family a second time, and they were using Emma's capacity for love as a weapon to do it. Not if we stop them first, Maggie said firmly. Detective Walsh nodded. We have enough evidence now to arrest Alex on charges of fraud and identity theft. The question is whether you want to press charges or whether you want to help us set a trap to catch Marcus as well. What kind of trap? Emma asked. Alex doesn't know that we know his real identity. If we can get him to reveal more about his father's plans, maybe even get Marcus to show himself, we can arrest both of them and end this permanently. Emma thought about the diamond ring Alex had offered her, about his talk of securing assets and building a future together. The cruelty of it took her breath away, using her hope for healing and love to gain access to everything her father had died trying to protect. What do you need me to do? She asked. We need you to keep playing along for a few more days. Accept his proposal, let him think his plan is working. We'll wire your house and monitor his communications. When he makes his move to access your assets, we'll be ready. The idea of pretending to love Alex Morrison, of letting him think he'd successfully manipulated her into marriage, made Emma feel physically sick. But the thought of letting him and his father escape unpunished was worse. I'll do it, she said, but I want them both to pay for what they did to our family. Maggie squeezed her daughter's hand. Are you sure about this? It could be dangerous. Emma looked around the kitchen at the 3 generations of women who had survived David's death and its aftermath. They had rebuilt their lives from the ashes of Marcus Chen's betrayal once before. They would not be victims again. I'm sure, but I'm going to need help. I don't know if I can convince Alex that I'm truly in love with him when every word he says makes my skin crawl. You won't have to do it alone, Detective Walsh promised. We'll have backup plans and exit strategies. The moment you feel unsafe, we pull you out. Lily had been listening to the adult conversation with the serious attention she gave to everything these days. Now she spoke up with the startling directness that sometimes made her seem much older than her 8 years. Will this make the bad men go away forever? Emma pulled her daughter close, breathing in the sweet scent of her shampoo. Yes, sweetheart, we're going to make sure they can never hurt anyone else. That night, as Emma put Lily to bed, the little girl asked the question that had been weighing on all their minds. Mama, how did you know Alex was lying? Emma considered the question seriously. I think part of me knew something was wrong from the beginning, but I didn't want to believe it. I wanted so badly to be happy again that I ignored the warning signs. Like what Grandma Maggie says about trusting your instincts. Exactly like that. Sometimes adults are so focused on what they want to be true that they stop listening to what their hearts are telling them. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Will you listen to your instincts from now on? I promise, Emma said, and meant it. After Lily was asleep, Emma sat alone in her bedroom, staring at the diamond ring Alex had given her. Tomorrow she would have to put it on her finger and pretend to be the happiest woman in Boston. She would have to look into his eyes and smile, knowing that everything about their relationship had been a calculated lie designed to destroy her family's future. The ring was beautiful, she had to admit, but beauty could be deceptive, and love could be weaponized. Alex Morrison had taught her that lesson in the cruelest possible way. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Good night, my love. I hope you're as excited about our future as I am. Can't wait to start planning our life together. Emma stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Good night, Adam. I can't wait either. It was the first time she'd lied to him deliberately, and it felt like the first step toward reclaiming her power. The next morning brought unseasonable warmth and crystalline skies that made Boston Harbor sparkle like scattered diamonds. Emma stood at her bedroom window watching joggers and dog walkers pass by on the sidewalk below and tried to prepare herself mentally for what lay ahead. Detective Walsh had explained the plan in detail the night before. Emma would accept Alex's proposal and begin planning an engagement party. She would express enthusiasm about combining their assets and maybe even suggest accelerating their timeline for financial reasons. The goal was to make Alex believe that she was so blinded by love and excitement that she was willing to give him access to everything. Meanwhile, surveillance equipment would be installed throughout the house, and undercover officers would be positioned around the neighborhood. The moment Alex made concrete moves toward accessing the Sterling family assets, they would have him. It was a solid plan, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that they were underestimating Alex and his father. Men who could plan and execute such an elaborate long-term deception were not likely to be caught easily. Her phone rang at exactly 9 a.m. Alex's name appeared on the screen, and Emma took a deep breath before answering. Good morning, beautiful. Did you sleep well? Like a baby, she lied smoothly. I've been thinking about yesterday, about your proposal. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and Emma could practically hear Alex's heart rate increase. And, and yes, Adam, yes, I'll marry you. The silence stretched so long that Emma wondered if the call had dropped. When Alex finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion that sounded genuine. Emma, you've made me the happiest man alive. I promise you won't regret this decision. I'm going to take such good care of you and Lily. I know you will, Emma replied, pushing down the nausea that rose in her throat. I was thinking, though, maybe we shouldn't wait too long to make things official. I'm not getting any younger, and Lily needs stability. How soon were you thinking? Emma forced enthusiasm into her voice. What about next month? I know it sounds crazy, but why wait when we know it's right? Another pause. Next month, that's very soon. Are you sure? I'm sure, Adam. I've already lost so much time to grief and fear. I don't want to waste another minute. Besides, she added, playing her trump card, there are practical considerations. Financial planning, combining assets, making sure Lily's future is secure. The sooner we're married, the sooner we can start building our life together. The mention of combining assets seemed to flip a switch in Alex's brain. Suddenly, his voice was animated, excited in a way that made Emma's skin crawl. You're absolutely right. There's no point in waiting. Emma, I have some ideas about how we could optimize your family's financial situation. Maybe even turn some of those assets into real growth opportunities. I'd love to hear them. Why don't you come over for lunch today? We can start making plans. I'll be there at noon. And Emma, I love you so much. The words should have warmed her heart. Instead, they felt like ice water in her veins. I love you too, Adam. After hanging up, Emma sat on her bed for several minutes trying to process the complex emotions churning in her chest. Anger at being manipulated, fear of what Alex and his father might be capable of, and underneath it all, a deep sadness for the genuine connection she'd thought they shared. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Come in. Lily peered around the doorframe, already dressed for school but looking unusually serious. Mama, I heard you talking to Alex. Are you really going to marry him? Emma patted the bed beside her, and Lily climbed up to snuggle against her side. How did you explain to an 8-year-old that sometimes adults had to lie to protect the people they loved? It's complicated, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups have to pretend things in order to keep their families safe. Like when you pretended to like that medicine when I was sick even though it tasted awful. Something like that, yes. Lillian was quiet for a moment, processing this information with the gravity she brought to everything these days. Will Detective Walsh and Grandma Maggie keep us safe while you're pretending? They will. And Lily, if anything ever happens that makes you feel scared, you remember our plan. Okay, call Grandma Maggie immediately. I will. Mama. Yes, sweetheart. I think you're being very brave. Emma pulled her daughter closer, marveling at the resilience and wisdom that trauma had forced upon this little girl. We both are, Lily. We both are. At 11:45 a.m., unmarked surveillance vans began taking positions around the Sterling house. Detective Walsh sat in the back of one of them, monitoring the audio equipment they'd installed throughout the first floor during Emma's morning at work. The plan was simple in concept, but complex in execution. Let Alex reveal his true intentions while ensuring the Sterling family's safety. Maggie had taken Lily to a movie, giving Emma privacy for her performance, while keeping the little girl away from potential danger. Now the house felt unnaturally quiet, like a theater stage, waiting for the curtain to rise. At exactly noon, Alex's silver sedan pulled into the driveway. Emma watched from the window as he emerged carrying flowers and what appeared to be a bottle of champagne. He looked relaxed, confident, like a man whose long-term plan was finally coming to fruition. Emma met him at the door, forcing her brightest smile as he swept her into his arms and spun her around on the front porch. Mrs. Emma Chen, he said, setting her down and kissing her deeply. I like the sound of that. The kiss felt like betrayal against her own body, but Emma managed to laugh and play along. Not quite yet, but soon. They moved to the living room where Alex popped the champagne with theatrical flourish. To our future, he toasted, and to all the possibilities ahead of us. To possibilities. Emma agreed, clinking her glass against his while thinking about the surveillance equipment, recording every word. Alex settled beside her on the sofa, pulling out his phone and opening what appeared to be a financial planning app. I've been thinking about what you said this morning about combining assets and optimizing your family's situation. Emma, I think there are some incredible opportunities we could pursue together, such as, well, for starters, that Cape Cod property. It's beautiful, but it's also sitting there appreciating in value without generating any income. We could develop it into luxury vacation rentals, maybe even a small boutique resort. The return on investment would be substantial. Emma felt her chest tighten as Alex casually discussed transforming her family's beloved summer refuge into a commercial property. Develop it. But it's been in my family for 40 years. I know, and I respect that history. But sweetheart, sometimes you have to be willing to let go of sentimental attachments in order to secure your future. Think about Lily's college fund, her future opportunities. This property could pay for everything. The way he said it made Emma's skin crawl. Alex was asking her to sacrifice her family's history and emotional connections for financial gain that would primarily benefit him. And he was using Lily's future as leverage to make his request seem reasonable. What else were you thinking? She asked, forcing interest into her voice. Alex's eyes lit up as he launched into a detailed presentation about investment opportunities, asset redistribution, and financial optimization strategies. As he spoke, Emma realized that he knew far more about her family's finances than she'd ever told him. He referenced specific insurance policies, property values, and investment accounts that she'd never discussed with him. How do you know about my father's life insurance policy? She interrupted. Alex paused mid-sentence, and for just a moment his mask slipped. You mentioned it, remember, when we were talking about financial security? No, I didn't. I've never told you the specific amount of that policy. The silence stretched between them like a taut wire. Emma could see Alex's mind working, trying to find a plausible explanation for knowledge he shouldn't possess. I think you did mention it, he said finally, but maybe you were upset at the time and don't remember. Emma, these details don't matter. What matters is that we're building a future together. But the details did matter, and Alex's inability to explain his knowledge of private financial information confirmed what Emma already suspected: he'd been investigating her family long before they'd supposedly met by chance. Adam, can I ask you something? Anything. What happened to your father? You've never talked much about your family. The question seemed to catch Alex off guard. His hand tightened around his champagne glass, and Emma saw a flash of something raw and painful cross his features before he composed himself. My father died when I was in college, he said carefully. It was sudden. A business deal went wrong and he lost everything. The stress killed him. I'm so sorry. That must have been terrible for you. It was, but it taught me something important. You can't trust other people with your financial security. You have to take control of your own destiny. Make sure the people you love are protected. The words were almost identical to what Emma had said about him the day before, but now she heard the underlying message. Alex had learned to see financial security as something that had to be taken rather than earned, and he was willing to destroy other people's lives to achieve it. Is that why you're so focused on our assets? She asked. Because of what happened to your father. Alex set down his champagne and took her hands in his. Emma, I don't want you to ever experience what my family went through. I want to make sure you and Lily are secure no matter what happens. That's why I'm suggesting these investments and developments. Not for me, but for us. The sincerity in his voice was almost convincing, but Emma could see the calculation behind his eyes. Alex had perfected the art of making selfish actions seem altruistic, of using other people's vulnerabilities as tools of manipulation. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Phase 2 ready. Proceed when comfortable. Detective Walsh letting her know that they had enough audio evidence and were ready for the next stage of their plan. Demoya, Emma said, leaning forward with what she hoped looked like enthusiasm. These ideas sound amazing. When can we start making concrete plans? How about this afternoon I could arrange for some contractors to look at the Cape Cod property, maybe get some preliminary development estimates. This afternoon, that seems very fast. Alex's grip on her hands tightened slightly. Emma, in real estate, timing is everything. If we wait too long, we might miss our window of opportunity. There was an urgency in his voice that hadn't been there before, a pressure that suggested Alex was working toward a specific timeline. Emma wondered if Marcus Chen was somewhere in Boston right now waiting for his son to complete their plan. Okay, she said, let's do it, but I'd like to bring my mother along. This affects her too, and I want her to be part of the decision-making process. For just a moment, Alex's mask slipped completely, and Emma saw naked frustration in his expression. Do you think that's necessary? This is really about our future, not hers. Adam, my mother is part of my life. If you're going to marry me, you're going to have to accept that she'll always be important to me. Of course, Alex said quickly. I just meant that sometimes it's easier to make these kinds of decisions without too many opinions involved. But if you want her there, that's fine. The conversation continued for another hour, with Alex becoming increasingly specific about his plans for their combined assets. He talked about liquidating certain investments, transferring property titles, and establishing joint accounts with the casual confidence of someone who'd done this before. Emma played her part perfectly, asking naive questions about financial planning and expressing excitement about their shared future. But underneath her performance, she was cataloging every detail of Alex's proposals, every slip of his mask, every revelation about his true motivations. When he finally left to make arrangements for the afternoon's property visit, Emma felt drained and dirty, as if his lies had left a residue on her skin that no amount of washing could remove. Detective Walsh called within minutes of Alex's departure. Emma, well, that was incredible. We got everything we needed and more. The way he discussed accessing your family's assets, the timeline he's pushing, his knowledge of financial details you never shared with him, it's all on tape now. And what happens next? We wait for him to make his move on the property. Once he takes concrete steps toward accessing or transferring assets that belong to you, we arrest him. But Emma, I need to warn you about something. We have intelligence suggesting that Marcus Chen is in Boston. If Alex is feeling pressured to accelerate his timeline, it's because his father is here. The knowledge that Marcus Chen, the man whose betrayal had driven her father to suicide, was somewhere in her city filled Emma with a cold rage that surprised her with its intensity. Good, she said. I want them both to pay for what they've done to my family. That evening, as Emma helped Lily with her homework and tried to maintain the pretense of normalcy, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were balanced on the edge of something dangerous. Alex and Marcus Chen had spent years planning their revenge against the Sterling family, and now they were close to achieving it. But they had underestimated the strength of 3 generations of women who had already survived one devastating betrayal. This time the Sterling family would be ready. The gift of truth was about to be delivered, and Emma intended to make sure it destroyed the men who had tried to destroy her family. The morning of what Alex believed would be his final triumph dawned gray and cold, with November clouds hanging low over Boston Harbor like a shroud. Emma stood at her kitchen window watching unmarked police vehicles take their positions around the neighborhood and tried to calm the nervous energy that had kept her awake most of the night. Today, Alex would bring contractors to evaluate the Cape Cod property for development. Today, he would push for signatures on documents that would give him access to assets worth $4 million. And today, Detective Walsh and her team would arrest both Alex Morrison and his father, Marcus Chen, ending the nightmare that had haunted the Sterling family for 3 years. Mama, you're shaking. Emma looked down to find Lily standing beside her, already dressed for school, but carrying her backpack and the small recording device that had become her constant companion. I'm just nervous, sweetheart. Today is going to be a big day. Will the bad men be gone after today? Emma knelt down to hug her daughter, breathing in the familiar scent of strawberry shampoo and innocence that somehow persisted despite everything Lily had witnessed. I hope so, baby. I really hope so. Maggie appeared in the kitchen, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the determined expression that had carried her through 30 years of life-and-death medical decisions. The surveillance team is in position, she reported quietly. Detective Walsh says they're ready whenever Alex makes his move. What if something goes wrong, Emma asked. What if he realizes we know who he really is? Then we improvise, Maggie replied with a calmness that Emma found both reassuring and terrifying. We've survived worse than Alex Morrison, sweetheart. We'll survive this too. At 8:30, Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Alex. Can't wait to see you today, my love. This is going to be the beginning of our beautiful future. I've arranged for a team of specialists to meet us at the Cape House at 2 p.m. See you soon. Emma stared at the message, struck by the casual way that Alex discussed dismantling her family's most precious memories. The Cape Cod house wasn't just property to the Sterling family. It was where she'd taken her first steps, where she'd learned to swim, where she and James had spent their honeymoon, where Lily had built her first sandcastle. Alex was planning to turn those sacred spaces into profit margins. He's bringing a whole team, Emma told her mother and daughter. This isn't just a casual look anymore. He's moving fast. Maggie's jaw tightened. Then we need to be ready for anything. Lily, are you comfortable going to school today? Or would you prefer to stay with Mrs. Henderson next door? Lily considered this seriously, as she did everything these days. I think I should go to school. If something bad happens, I don't want to be in the way. But Grandma Maggie? Yes, sweetheart. I put my backup recorder in Mama's purse last night, just in case the big one stops working. Emma felt a surge of pride and heartbreak at her daughter's foresight. At 8 years old, Lily had already learned that the adults in her life couldn't always protect her from danger, so she'd developed her own systems of security and protection. After Lily left for school, Emma and Maggie sat in the kitchen ostensibly having breakfast, but really just waiting for the day's events to begin. Detective Walsh had explained that the arrest would happen the moment Alex took concrete steps toward accessing Sterling family assets, probably when he asked Emma to sign documents transferring property or establishing joint accounts. Are you ready for this? Maggie asked, studying her daughter's face with the clinical attention she'd once used to assess patients before surgery. I don't think anyone can be ready to discover that their entire relationship was a lie designed to destroy their family, Emma replied. But I'm ready to see justice done. Mom, what Alex is doing to us. It's exactly what his father did to Dad, isn't it? The systematic erosion of trust, the manipulation of emotions, the calculated destruction of everything we've built. Maggie nodded slowly. The only difference is that this time we know what's happening before it's too late. At 10 a.m., Alex arrived at the house carrying flowers, coffee, and a leather portfolio that presumably contained the documents he planned to use to gain access to their assets. He kissed Emma warmly, complimented Maggie's appearance, and settled into their living room with the comfortable confidence of a man whose plan was proceeding exactly as intended. I couldn't sleep last night, he told Emma, taking her hand and stroking her engagement ring. I kept thinking about all the possibilities ahead of us, all the ways we can optimize your family's financial situation. I'm excited too, Emma lied smoothly, although I have to admit I'm a little nervous about making such big changes so quickly. Alex's grip on her hand tightened slightly. Emma, I understand that change can be scary, but sometimes in life you have to be willing to take calculated risks in order to secure your future. The contractors I'm bringing today are the best in New England. They've developed properties from Martha's Vineyard to Bar Harbor, and they all agree that your Cape Cod house has incredible potential. You've already talked to them about our property, Maggie interjected, her voice carefully neutral. Just preliminary discussions, Alex replied, but Emma caught the slight flush that crept up his neck. I wanted to make sure we were working with the right people before I brought Emma into the process. The casual way he'd taken it upon himself to discuss their private family property with strangers sent ice through Emma's veins. This wasn't collaboration or partnership. It was appropriation, the same systematic claiming of assets that had destroyed her father. What kind of development are you thinking about? Emma asked, playing her part while the surveillance equipment recorded every word. Alex opened his portfolio and spread architectural sketches across the coffee table. I was thinking luxury vacation rentals, maybe 8 to 10 units each with private beach access and high-end amenities. The rental income would be substantial, and the property value would triple within 5 years. Emma stared at the drawings, which showed their beloved family cottage demolished and replaced by a series of sleek, modern rental units that bore no resemblance to the weathered, shingled house where 3 generations of Sterlings had made memories. You want to tear down the house, she whispered. The existing structure is charming, but it's not economically viable, Alex explained with the detached tone of someone discussing a business transaction rather than the destruction of a family's history. These new units would generate approximately $200,000 per year in rental income compared to the current property taxes and maintenance costs that are essentially money down the drain. Maggie stood abruptly and walked to the window, her shoulders rigid with barely controlled fury. Alex, that house has been in our family for 40 years. It's where Emma learned to walk, where she was married, where Lily took her first steps. You're talking about erasing our entire family history. Alex's mask of sympathy was perfectly calibrated. Dr. Sterling, I understand the emotional attachment, truly I do. But sometimes we have to make difficult decisions for the greater good. Emma's financial security, Lily's education fund, your retirement planning, all of these things are more important than sentiment. The way he dismissed decades of family memories as mere sentiment revealed the fundamental emptiness at Alex's core. He was incapable of understanding that some things had value beyond their monetary worth, that love and history and belonging couldn't be quantified on a balance sheet. Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Detective Walsh. He's taking the bait. Stay calm, we're almost ready. The financial projections do look impressive, Emma said carefully, but this is such a big decision. Maybe we should take some time to think about it. For the first time since she'd met him, Alex's charming facade cracked completely. Emma, we don't have time. These contractors are only available today, and if we don't move forward now, we'll lose our window of opportunity. In real estate, hesitation costs money. The urgency in his voice, the pressure he was applying felt familiar in the worst possible way. Emma remembered her father describing how Marcus Chen had used similar tactics, creating artificial deadlines, manufacturing urgency, pushing for decisions that benefited only himself. Why is timing so critical? Maggie asked, turning back from the window with the sharp attention of someone who'd spent decades identifying life-threatening emergencies. Alex's eyes flickered with what might have been panic before the smooth explanations resumed. Market conditions, contractor availability, seasonal considerations for coastal construction. There are a dozen factors that make this the ideal time to move forward. But his body language contradicted his words. He kept glancing at his phone, checking his watch, radiating the kind of nervous energy that suggested he was working toward a specific deadline that had nothing to do with market conditions. Emma's phone buzzed again. Marcus Chen just entered the neighborhood. Silver Mercedes, 2 men. This is it. The knowledge that Marcus Chen, the architect of her family's destruction, was less than a mile away filled Emma with a cold clarity that burned away her remaining fear. This was the moment they'd been preparing for, the confrontation that would finally bring justice for her father's death. Alex, she said, injecting enthusiasm into her voice, you've convinced me. Let's do it. What do you need me to sign? The relief that flooded Alex's features was almost comical. He pulled a thick sheaf of documents from his portfolio, his hands actually shaking with excitement as he arranged them on the coffee table. These are preliminary agreements, he explained, giving us the authority to move forward with property assessment, development planning, and construction permits. Nothing is final yet, but it allows us to begin the process. Emma leaned forward to examine the documents, noting the legal firm's letterhead and the complexity of the language. These weren't preliminary agreements. They were comprehensive contracts that would give Alex sweeping authority over Sterling family assets. This gives you power of attorney over the Cape Cod property, she asked, pointing to a specific clause. Only for development purposes, Wicks assured her. It's standard for projects like this. Emma, I need you to trust me. Everything I'm doing is for us, for our future together. The word trust coming from Alex's lips was so obscene that Emma had to bite her tongue to keep from responding. This man had built their entire relationship on lies and manipulation, had targeted her family for destruction, and now he was asking her to trust him with assets worth millions of dollars. But she played her part, nodding and reaching for a pen. Where do I sign? Just here, Alex said, pointing to signature lines throughout the documents. And Dr. Sterling will need your signature as well, since some of these assets are jointly held. Maggie approached the coffee table with the deliberate movements of a surgeon preparing for a complex operation. She examined each document carefully, asking pointed questions about specific clauses and legal implications. This transfers significant control to you personally, she observed. What happens if Emma changes her mind about the development? These agreements include cancellation clauses. Alex replied, but his confidence was beginning to fray around the edges. Emma, we really do need to move quickly. The contractors will be here soon. Emma picked up the pen and positioned it over the first signature line. In her peripheral vision, she could see unmarked police cars moving into position outside. Detective Walsh would be listening to every word through the surveillance equipment, waiting for the perfect moment to move. Alex, before I sign these, I have just one question. Of course, anything. What's your real name? The silence that followed Emma's question was so complete that she could hear the clock ticking on the mantel, the distant sound of traffic on Beacon Street, the whisper of her own heartbeat in her ears. Alex's face went through a series of transformations. Confusion, denial, calculation, and finally a cold hardness that Emma had never seen before. When he spoke, his voice was completely different, stripped of the warm charm that had seduced her into believing his lies. I don't know what you mean. I mean, Emma said, setting down the pen and meeting his eyes directly, that Adam Chen doesn't exist. I mean that your real name is Alex Morrison and your father is Marcus Chen, the man who stole from my father and drove him to suicide. Alex stared at her for a long moment, and Emma could see him calculating options, assessing threats, deciding how to respond to the complete collapse of his carefully constructed deception. Emma, he said finally, I think you've been listening to too many conspiracy theories. Your mother has obviously filled your head with, stop. Emma's voice cut through his attempts at manipulation like a blade. I know who you are. I know why you're here. I know about the offshore accounts, about the money your father stole, about your systematic targeting of our family. Alex's mask didn't just slip. It shattered completely. The man who remained bore no resemblance to the charming boyfriend who had swept Emma off her feet. His eyes were cold and calculating, his posture predatory, his smile sharp enough to cut. Well, he said softly, I suppose there's no point in pretending anymore. He stood up from the couch with fluid grace, and Emma noticed for the first time that his jacket bulged slightly at the shoulder. Was he armed? Had they underestimated how dangerous he might be when cornered? Emma, your father destroyed my family. He set my father up to take the fall for his own financial mismanagement, then played the victim when everything collapsed. My father lost everything, his reputation, his business, his future. He spent years rebuilding his life in exile, while your family lived comfortably off assets that should have belonged to us. The conviction in Alex's voice was terrifying because it was genuine. He truly believed his own version of events had constructed an elaborate mythology in which his father was the victim and the Sterling family were the villains. That's not what happened, Maggie said firmly. Marcus embezzled money from joint accounts. The FBI investigated. There were charges filed, charges that were dropped when Marcus disappeared. Alex shot back. Convenient, don't you think? Your husband got to keep all the assets while my father was labeled a criminal and forced into hiding. Emma felt a chill of understanding. Alex wasn't just after their money. He genuinely believed he was righting a historical wrong, reclaiming assets that belonged to his family. That made him infinitely more dangerous than a simple gold digger because it meant he could justify almost anything in service of what he saw as justice. Even if that were true, Emma said carefully, it doesn't justify what you've done to me. You've built our entire relationship on lies. You've manipulated my emotions, exploited my grief, used my capacity for love as a weapon against my own family. For just a moment, something that might have been genuine regret flickered across Alex's features. Emma, I want you to know that my feelings for you became real. I didn't expect to actually fall in love with you, but that doesn't change what needs to happen here. What needs to happen? Alex reached into his jacket, and Emma's heart stopped as she prepared for him to draw a weapon. Instead, he pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Dad, it's time. They know who we are. The casual way he spoke to Marcus Chen, the matter-of-fact acknowledgement that their deception had been discovered, sent ice through Emma's veins. This wasn't panic or desperation. This was the activation of a contingency plan. Emma, Alex said, ending this call, I'm going to need you to sign those documents now, all of them. And if I refuse, Alex's smile was cold and sharp, then this gets much more complicated for everyone involved. The threat was vague but unmistakable. Emma glanced at her mother, seeing her own fear reflected in Maggie's eyes. Where was Detective Walsh? Why hadn't the police moved in yet? Alex, let's talk about this reasonably, Maggie said, moving slowly toward the kitchen. Maybe we can work out some kind of arrangement that satisfies everyone. The only arrangement that satisfies me is the one we've been planning for 3 years, Alex replied. Dr. Sterling, Please don't move any further toward the kitchen. I'd hate for this to become more complicated than necessary. Emma's phone buzzed with a text and she glanced down to see a message from an unknown number. Police delayed. Father has Lily. Sign documents or she gets hurt. The words hit Emma like a physical blow. Marcus Chen had her daughter. Lily was somewhere in the city with the man whose betrayal had destroyed their family once before, and now he was using her as leverage to complete their revenge. Where is she? Emma whispered, her voice breaking. Somewhere safe, Alex assured her. And she'll stay safe as long as you cooperate. Emma, this doesn't have to be traumatic. Sign the documents, transfer the assets, and my father and I disappear forever. You'll never see us again and Lily comes home unharmed. You're talking about kidnapping, Maggie said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Do you understand what kind of federal charges you'll face for this? Only if we get caught, Alex replied. And that's not going to happen. Emma, the documents. Now. Emma picked up the pen with trembling hands, her mind racing through possibilities and finding no good options. If she signed, Alex and Marcus would disappear with millions of dollars in Sterling family assets. If she refused, they might hurt Lily. Either way, these men would have won. But as she positioned the pen over the signature line, Emma remembered something Lily had said the night before. I think you're being very brave. Her 8-year-old daughter, who had lost her father and lived through her mother's depression and now faced kidnapping by strangers, thought Emma was brave. Maybe it was time to prove Lily right. Alex, Emma said, setting down the pen, there's something you should know about my daughter. What's that? Emma smiled for the first time since learning Alex's true identity. She's been recording every conversation you've had in this house since the night you met her. Every phone call, every private discussion, every slip of your mask. And those recordings have been uploaded to a secure server that the FBI has been monitoring. Alex's confident expression flickered with uncertainty. You're lying. Would you like to hear some of your greatest hits? Like the conversation where you told your father that the Sterling woman was getting suspicious, or the one where you discussed accelerating your timeline because the police were getting close. The color drained from Alex's face as he realized the implications. That's impossible. She's 8 years old. She's 8 ye's old and she's been protecting this family since she was 6, Emma said fiercely. Alex, you've already lost. The police have enough evidence to convict both you and your father, and they've been tracking your every move for days. Alex fumbled for his phone, presumably to call his father, but before he could dial, the front door exploded inward, and Detective Walsh burst through with a team of armed officers. FBI Alex Morrison, you're under arrest. The next few minutes passed in a blur of shouted commands, handcuffs, and Miranda rights. Alex was forced to the ground and secured while Emma and Maggie were moved to safety. Detective Walsh appeared at Emma's side, her expression grim. Lily's safe, she said immediately. We had her under surveillance at school and Marcus never got anywhere near her. The text was a bluff. They were hoping to panic you into signing. The relief that flooded Emma's system nearly knocked her to her knees. She's really safe. She's really safe, and Alex and Marcus are both in custody. Emma, what you did just now, refusing to sign even when you thought Lily was in danger. That took incredible courage. As the police led Alex away in handcuffs, he looked back at Emma one last time. This isn't over, he said. My father has lawyers' connections. We'll find a way to get what belongs to us. Alex, Emma replied, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. What belongs to you is exactly what you're getting. Justice for your crimes, nothing more, nothing less. 3 hours later, Emma sat in her kitchen with Lily curled against her side. Both of them watching Detective Walsh explain the evidence that had been gathered against Alex and Marcus Morrison. The surveillance equipment had captured dozens of hours of incriminating conversations. Lily's recordings had provided crucial details about their planning, and financial records showed a clear pattern of targeting vulnerable families across multiple states. How many other families did they hurt? Emma asked. We're still investigating, but we believe there were at least 4 other targets over the past 5 years. Women who had recently lost spouses, families with significant assets, and reduced support systems. The Morrisons had turned manipulation and financial exploitation into a family business. Lily looked up from where she'd been quietly listening. Will they go to jail for a long time? A very long time, Detective Walsh confirmed. Alex is facing charges of fraud, identity theft, attempted kidnapping, and conspiracy. Marcus has all the same charges plus the original embezzlement charges from your grandfather's case. They're looking at decades in federal prison. Good, Lily said with startling firmness. People who hurt families should be punished. That evening, after Detective Walsh had left and the surveillance equipment had been removed, the three generations of Sterling women sat in their living room trying to process the end of their ordeal. Emma kept expecting to feel relief or triumph, but instead she felt hollow, scraped raw by the discovery that everything she'd believed about Alex had been a carefully constructed lie. How do I trust anyone again, she asked her mother. How do I ever know if someone's genuine or just another predator looking for an angle? Maggie was quiet for a long moment, considering the question with the seriousness it deserved. I think, she said finally, that you trust your instincts. You listen to the warning signs that your heart and your gut are giving you. And you remember that most people in the world are genuinely good. It's just that the bad ones are very, very good at disguising themselves. I trusted my instincts about Alex, and they told me he was wonderful. Did they, though? Maggie asked gently. Emma, think back to your earliest interactions with him. Were there moments when something felt off, when his behavior didn't quite match his words? Were there warning signs that you ignored because you wanted so desperately to be happy again? Emma considered this, replaying her memories of their first dates, their early conversations, the gradual progression of their relationship. There were moments, she admitted, times when he seemed to know more about us than I'd told him. Times when his reactions felt rehearsed rather than spontaneous. But I explained them away because I wanted to believe that someone like him could love someone like me. That's what predators count on, Detective Walsh had explained earlier. They target people who are vulnerable, who want to believe in love and connection and healing. They exploit the very best parts of human nature, our capacity for trust, for forgiveness, for hope. Lily had been unusually quiet during the adults' conversation, but now she spoke up with the directness that had become her trademark. Mama, I never liked Alex. I know, sweetheart, your instincts were better than mine. It wasn't instincts, Lily said seriously. It was his eyes. When he looked at us, he was always calculating something. Like he was trying to figure out how much we were worth instead of just seeing us as people. The precision of Lily's observation struck Emma like a lightning bolt. Her 8-year-old daughter had identified the fundamental emptiness at Alex's core. His inability to see other people as anything more than assets to be acquired or obstacles to be managed. You're going to be an incredible detective someday, Emma told her daughter. I don't want to be a detective, Lily replied. I want to be a teacher. I want to help children learn how to protect themselves from bad people. The matter-of-fact way Lily discussed turning her traumatic experience into a way to help others filled Emma with a pride so fierce it took her breath away. Her daughter had faced manipulation, deception, and the threat of kidnapping, and her response was to want to protect other children from similar dangers. I think that's a beautiful idea, Lily. Over the following weeks, as Alex and Marcus Morrison awaited trial and the Sterling family began the process of healing, Emma found herself thinking often about the nature of deception and truth. Alex had built their entire relationship on lies, but those lies had been so sophisticated, so perfectly crafted to appeal to her specific vulnerabilities that she wondered how anyone could be expected to recognize them. The answer, she realized, lay not in becoming cynical or suspicious of everyone, but in learning to trust herself more completely. Alex had succeeded because Emma had ignored her own instincts in favor of what she wanted to be true. He had counted on her desire for love and healing to blind her to the warning signs that her subconscious mind had been registering all along. The trial, when it finally came, was a media sensation. The story of a mother and grandmother who had exposed a sophisticated family of con artists captured the public imagination, and Emma found herself thrust into an unwelcome spotlight. But she testified with a clarity and strength, detailing Alex's manipulation tactics in the systematic way he had targeted her family. Alex's defense attorney tried to paint him as a victim of his father's influence, a young man who had been corrupted by years of listening to Marcus's twisted version of events. But the evidence was overwhelming. Recorded conversations, financial documents, testimony from other victims, and the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all charges. Marcus Morrison received 30 years in federal prison. Alex received 25 years, with the judge noting that his youth was balanced by the sophisticated nature of his crimes and the psychological damage he had inflicted on his victims. As Emma watched them being led away in handcuffs, she felt not triumph but a deep sadness for the waste of human potential. Alex had been intelligent, charming, and capable of genuine emotion, all qualities that could have made him a force for good in the world. Instead, he had chosen to use his gifts to exploit and destroy. But the Sterling family had survived. They had not only exposed Alex and Marcus's crimes, but had emerged stronger and more united than before. The experience had taught them valuable lessons about trust, about vulnerability, about the importance of listening to their instincts, even when those instincts conflicted with their desires. 1 year after Alex's arrest, Emma stood on the deck of their Cape Cod house, watching Lily build sandcastles with the methodical attention she brought to everything in her life. The house remained unchanged. No luxury condominiums, no vacation rentals, just the weathered shingles and comfortable rooms that had sheltered 3 generations of Sterling women. Maggie appeared beside her with 2 cups of coffee, a ritual they had maintained throughout Emma's childhood and had resumed after the trial ended. "Any regrets?" Maggie asked. Emma considered the question seriously. The past year had been difficult in many ways. The media attention, the therapy sessions, the slow process of learning to trust her own judgment again. But it had also brought unexpected gifts, a deeper relationship with her mother, a profound appreciation for Lily's strength and wisdom, and a clarity about what truly mattered in life. "No," she said finally, "no regrets. Everything that happened led us to this moment, to this understanding of how strong we actually are. And Alex." Emma was quiet for a moment, watching the waves crash against the shore in their eternal rhythm. "I feel sorry for him. He had everything he needed to build a genuine life. Intelligence, charm, even the capacity for love. But he chose to use those gifts to hurt people instead of help them. That's a tragedy not just for his victims, but for him too." Lily ran up from the beach, her hands covered in sand and her face bright with the uncomplicated joy of childhood. "Mama, come see what I built. It's a castle with walls all around it to keep the bad people out." Emma followed her daughter down to the beach, marveling at the elaborate fortress Lily had constructed. It was complete with towers and battlements, moats and drawbridges, everything a medieval castle would need to protect the people inside. "It's beautiful, sweetheart, and very well defended." "That's the point," Lily said seriously. "The people inside are safe because they built strong walls, and they watch for danger, and they help each other when bad things happen." As Emma admired her daughter's creation, she realized that Lily had unconsciously built a metaphor for their family's survival. They had constructed strong emotional walls, they had learned to watch for danger, and they had supported each other through the worst crisis they could imagine. The gift of truth had been painful to unwrap, but it had ultimately set them free. Free from Alex's manipulation, free from the fear of unknown threats, free from the guilt and shame that had haunted them since David's death. They knew who they were, now knew what they were capable of, knew that they could survive anything as long as they faced it together. That evening, as they sat on the deck watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and crimson, Emma's phone buzzed with a text message. For just a moment, her heart raced with old fears before she saw that it was from Detective Walsh. "Thought you'd want to know, Alex and Marcus were both denied parole review. They won't be eligible for release for at least 15 years. You and your family are safe." Emma showed the message to Maggie and Lily, and they sat in comfortable silence, watching the last light fade from the sky. Tomorrow they would return to Boston, to their regular lives, to the ongoing work of healing and growing and building something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. But tonight they were exactly where they belonged, together, safe and free. The Sterling family had given Alex Morrison exactly what he deserved, the gift of truth delivered with precision and wrapped in justice. And that gift, unlike his deceptions, would last forever. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Emma made a silent promise to her father's memory. No one would ever again use their family's capacity for love as a weapon against them. They had learned to be strong without becoming hard, to be cautious without becoming cynical, to protect themselves without losing their ability to trust and hope and love. The gift of truth had taught them that some presents once unwrapped revealed treasures more valuable than anything that could be stolen. The truth about their own resilience, their own wisdom, their own unbreakable bond as a family. These were gifts that no con artist could take away. And in the end, that was worth more than all the money Alex and Marcus Morrison had ever dreamed of stealing. 2 years after the trial, Emma Sterling stood before a packed auditorium at Boston University, delivering the keynote address at a conference on financial fraud and family protection. Her talk was titled, "The Gift of Truth: How One Family's Nightmare Became a Nation's Wake-Up Call." Predators count on our silence, she told the audience of law enforcement officers, social workers, and survivors of financial fraud. They count on our shame, our embarrassment, our desire to pretend that we weren't fooled. But the truth is, anyone can be manipulated by someone skilled enough and patient enough to study their vulnerabilities. In the audience, Maggie sat with 11-year-old Lily, who was taking notes in a composition book with the same methodical attention she brought to everything. Lily had decided that when she grew up, she wanted to be both a teacher and a detective, helping children recognize manipulation while also catching the people who tried to hurt families. "The most important lesson my family learned," Emma continued, "is that survival isn't about never being targeted. It's about recognizing the warning signs and trusting the people who love you enough to tell you difficult truths." After the presentation, a young woman approached Emma with tears in her eyes. "I think my boyfriend might be like your Alex," she whispered. "He knows too much about my finances. He's pushing me to make fast decisions, and my sister says something feels wrong about him." Emma took the woman's hands gently. "Then listen to your sister. Trust your instincts. And remember that love should never feel like pressure or manipulation. Real love gives you space to think, time to decide, and support for whatever choice you make." The Sterling Family Foundation, established with the recovered assets from the Morrison case, had helped dozens of families escape financial predators and rebuild their lives. Emma served as president. Maggie ran the education programs, and Lily, Sterling, despite her age, had become the foundation's most effective spokesperson, her recordings from the Morrison case used as training materials for law enforcement agencies across the country. As they drove home that evening through the streets of Boston, Lily asked the question that had been weighing on her mind since the presentation. "Mama, do you think Alex ever thinks about us?" Emma considered her answer carefully. "I think he probably does, sweetheart. But I hope he's thinking about the choices he made and how he could have chosen differently, not about how to hurt us again. Do you think he's sorry?" "I hope so. Being sorry doesn't undo the damage, but it's the first step toward becoming a better person." Lily nodded gravely, then brightened. "Mama, when we get home, can we call the police station and see if they need any help with new cases? I've been practicing my interviewing techniques, and I think I'm getting better at recognizing when people are lying." Emma smiled, feeling the familiar mixture of pride and heartbreak that came from watching her daughter turn trauma into purpose, pain into strength. "I think that's a wonderful idea, Lily." As they pulled into their driveway on Beacon Hill, Emma saw the house not as the scene of their near destruction, but as a testament to their survival. The same rooms where Alex had tried to manipulate them now hosted foundation meetings and support groups. The kitchen where he had spread his fraudulent documents now served meals to other families working to rebuild their lives. They had taken everything he had tried to use against them, their trust, their love, their desire for healing, and transformed it into tools for protecting others. The gift of truth, once unwrapped, had kept on giving, spreading far beyond their family to help victims across the country. That night, as Emma tucked Lily into bed, her daughter asked one final question. "Mama, are you glad we went through all that with Alex?" Emma paused, thinking about everything they had lost and everything they had gained. "I'm not glad that it happened, sweetheart, but I'm grateful for who we became because of it. We learned that we're stronger than we knew, braver than we thought, and capable of turning even the worst experiences into something meaningful." Lily nodded sleepily. "That's what I thought too. Good night, Mama. Good night, my brave girl." As Emma turned off the lights and headed to her own room, she reflected on the strange journey that had brought them to this point. Alex Morrison had tried to destroy their family, but instead he had shown them their own unbreakable strength. He had tried to steal their assets, but instead he had given them a mission that was worth more than money. He had tried to manipulate their love, but instead he had taught them to love more wisely. The gift of truth, Emma realized, was the most valuable present she had ever received. And unlike Alex's lies, it was a gift that would last forever, protecting not just her family, but countless others who would benefit from the hard-won wisdom born from their survival. Outside her window, Boston Harbor sparkled under the stars, beautiful and endless and free. Just like the Sterling family's future, which stretched ahead of them, filled with possibility, purpose, and the unshakable knowledge that together they could overcome anything. The gift of truth had set them free, and freedom Emma knew was the greatest treasure of all.